Basepaint is, if I were explaining this to someone in an airport, it is a creative canvas that people can draw on along a single theme and color palette. And every 24 hours, it turns over to a new theme and new color palette. And then the piece that was created the day before is sold for the following 24 hours. And the proceeds from that are divvied up proportionally by who contributes per pixel. I think that it is one of the best odes to collaboration that and on-chain collaboration that we have as a space. The fact that it's been going for I don't know how many days, 800 and something. Let me check. Um, Today is day 854. It's been going for over 850 days consecutively, um, and you can see, I own every one, and over the course of 853 days so far, you can see the collaboration, the quality of art, the art direction just getting stronger. And for 100+ people to do that in a decentralized fashion um, every day without breaks is astounding, and it's something to be. I don't think in art history or internet history we have many examples of that. There's /r/place on Reddit. This is not the first like creative canvas, but in terms of on-chain art, it's certainly the only one. And I just think it's really important that it's a low cost, accessible way to get into this digital art world. If and we need more examples of that. I haven't, but just sort of off the top of my head, like the proportional representation is really interesting, right? Like we have that to an extent here in part of like U.S. government. Um, and it allows you to earn more as you participate more. So like you involve it's an active choice to participate or to not, or to take a break or whatever. Um, I think being on chain every day, like there's many creative people have talked about it's easier to do something every day than it is to do it 2 or 3 days a week, because you just know that you got to get up and do it, right? Whether it was Casey Neistat making vlogs for a couple years, or Beeple's every days, or Song a Day Man, Jonathan Mann making a song every day for 7,000 days or something crazy, 17 years. We all want to phone it in every once in a while, and there's certainly part of that in the creative process. But I think like the fact that there's a piece of artwork that is output from the chain every single day, and has been for the last 853 days, like, is really cool. And as somebody who likes like collaboration and improvisation, and um it's to wake up and to say, how am I going to contribute to this thing, is like it's a challenge. It's an artistic prompt at the most base level. um and I don't know, I think I'm excited to see base paint evolve from where it is. I don't know where that goes. um but I don't know, there's a lot of like nuggets in here that I haven't seen applied elsewhere that certainly could be, probably. No, I think more just like on-chain governance. Like, we had DAOs in, 2022 and 23, and that was sort of an experiment that was started and kind of never went anywhere, because a lot of people were just sort of like free riders, right? They wanted everybody else to do the work. But we have these tools for incentives and outcomes on chain. And we have an example of this working, which is like these artists want to get paid for their work, so they're going to show up and contribute to the canvas, and then the canvas gets sold, and they can pull their funds out, and like it's a very simple mechanism. But how does that apply to like, um, if you have a group that is actively managing a fund, for an example, or um, do they just need to check in every day? Do they need, to keep their voting power up in the way that like forums did or used to, where you had like, karma of some kind, and like you got one more if you just logged in every day? Um, everybody talks about Duolingo streaks or Snapchat streaks. Um, there's a lot that I'm very passionate about. There's a lot from 2021 to 23 that like people started and put down because of like the bubble mania that we had. But there's a lot of interesting ideas that we just haven't explored to their fullest extent, and I think that Basepaint explores a lot of those further than, and similarly with nouns, it explores these ideas further than other people have. I collect it because I think it's like a seminal artwork on chain and on base. Um, I think it's, yeah, this ode to consistent collaboration, consistent improvisation, this structure that has formed among 100+ people from around the world to make stuff and remake stuff every single day. And I wrote this post, but like you can see it getting better throughout time, and you can see them explore these different themes, right? There's a lot of Pepe, obviously, and there's a lot of like native internet things, and over the course of time, like it's become very self-referential, which is cool and fun to see. People love a reference, right? But when you get into like an art theme, um, there's been some cubism things, there's been some um, like still life canvases, it's been some anime canvases. There's been things that explore sort of like Game Boy art. There's been some really cool like animation ones. The minimalism one, obviously, everyone loves. I thought that was a really bold choice to like erase the entire canvas and just have like the colors of the day. Right, and that's been alluded to a couple times in like 404 and maybe one more. The stamp one is really good. There are some that just I think it's similar with like Beeple and Jonathan Mann. It's like if you make stuff every day, like not everyone is going to be a hit, but the ones that are a hit are a result of you doing that thing every fucking day. And like a part of any creative process is like you're going to have days that just like you show up, you do the thing, you check the box, and you're done, right? But other days you're like, these guys were cooking. And I think just like it also makes me like not have to think about like, am I going to mint? I just like put in my subscription, and then every day like a new one shows up. And it's also just fun to be like, when people start dunking on NFTs, they're like, has anyone minted anything recently? I was like, I minted this one today, and this one yesterday, and this one the day before. And I don't know, it's fun to like support a thing that is so like, it's good hearted. It's not it's not funded in a way that it needs to be like a Ponzi scheme. Um, it's just an economically sound thing, right? Like you pay money for the canvas, pays the artist. That's the whole relationship, right? And from talking to artists like Jude and others, it's part of their day. It's a part of their revenue stream. And it's awesome that it can be part of how these people make money and support their family and themselves. I mean, that's so cool. Like, I think we've seen in a number of different crypto projects, whether it was what was that game that like the first like big play to earn, what was that called? Yeah, Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity, this happened on Farcaster for a little bit. Like a bunch of people in certain countries were like, the it costs relatively less to live than it does like in the States or the UK or whatever. Are able to make meaningful money off of crypto and smaller dollar amounts. And I think that's really cool. And I think like part of the issue that crypto has always had is like, living in the US, like we don't need it. We have a functioning dollar, we have a functioning Federal Reserve, like we're the reserve currency of the world. Like Bitcoin is a luxury, and cryptocurrency is a luxury. Like it's not something that is a safe haven in the way that it is for people who are in Nigeria or Greece or Argentina, Venezuela, places like that. So the fact that this project can support people's lifestyle like is you know we need more examples of that in crypto so that people can see that crypto is not all scams and bored apes and all of the things that it's been maligned for, that you can create these lovely simple mechanisms and do real things with it. Again, going back to nouns, like building skate parks, building water and school infrastructure in Africa, um, all the action sports stuff, like just the pure fun that nouns allows people to have, throw some noggles on it. Like that's awesome. And it's a fun use of money in a way that's not like, we're going to make this token. The token has no purpose. We're going to dump the token. We're going to piss a bunch of people off. And then we're going to move on to the next thing. Right. And I feel so clearly and so passionately in crypto, like you can see the difference between projects like a Basepaint and, you know, uh, pick your favorite VC backed thing that slapped a coin on and did a TGE. The TGE went straight to zero. And then like the founders like posted the like our wonderful journey, blog post where it's like, we cashed out. Thanks for playing. So I don't know. I think, there are so many cool coordination mechanisms in crypto, and Basepaint is very simple and very straightforward, and it works. And the fact that people can live off of that in certain places around the world is, a testament to that. If you do something over a long enough timeline, like theoretically, the lower numbers matter. Um, I think like with anything, it will be some combination of like aesthetically pleasing ones and lower numbers, right? Whether that's lower numbers by how many canvases were minted, or lower numbers by um, just the idea of the thing. Um, who's to say? I think just as long as it keeps going and as long as it like stays kind of true to itself, maybe that happens. Um, I think that it needs more champions and more people to like, you know, put it in galleries, get it to. I want to try to do an exhibit for them at Marfa next year, like Basepaint the first 1,000 days. Because like 853 days of people collaborating and like not making bad stuff, like whether I like the canvas or not, like it's coherent, it's on theme, it tells a story. There's no slop on there. There's people aren't graffitiing the canvas, right? There's no like random like brand URLs in there. um it's a clean output, and that's part of their process. And like the cleanup artists in the last like hour or two is they do a great job. um but like in terms of like art historical things, like what exists like this in art history? I don't know of much, right? There's the $1 million homepage is a similar example. There's /r/place, um right? But a lot of these other things too that have been similar, like I don't think they've lasted almost 3 years. So who's to say what they'll be worth? But you know I've got some low numbers, and maybe they'll be worth something. I don't know. If not, I've got a bunch of cool pixel art to look at. We talk about like 10,000 of punks and whatever else. um but again, for like this many people to come together and make something consistently every day is like, that's a testament to their stamina and creativity, and I think it's really cool. It's all on chain, right? Like there's no reason it should end on day 1,000. um I think it definitely needs to evolve somehow. I would be curious if it went back to its original canvas size now that people are more proficient in pixel art at this larger size, like what they could do at a smaller canvas size. Um, but I think it's getting, like anything, like it's getting a little repetitive for me. Like I'm getting a little bored. I would love to see them push more. I would love to see them get into more, like, you know, what if you're doing, like, can you do impressionism? Can you do, um, I don't know, like sort of art history um, themed things? Like their animation explorations have been really cool. There's been a couple, the Ship of Theseus animation was really cool. Um, so, I mean, there's plenty to explore there. And, I chat with Zach every once in a while about it. And I don't know, there's just, I think it's a really good entry place too for people to get into crypto, and for them to, just collect something and explore something that just doesn't have all the baggage attached to it. Right. And if you collect one and that's all you do, like you're out $5, like that's, you know, it's not gonna prevent you from paying rent, or you know keep a meal off the table, right? It's a cup of coffee. So um yeah, I don't know. I pushed my first commit last week, actually. I minted a brush. I did, my project Chunks has been featured on a bunch of canvases, and I moved the line of the nose down 1 pixel. So it was a 6 pixel contribution. Um, and I don't know, I just jumped in there and did it. But it was cool. Like, I go on there, I mint the brush, super cheap. I do my commit. Um, you know, I didn't have to bother anybody. I didn't have to talk to anybody. And it was cool. But usually I'm just collaborating. Sometimes I get in the chat and I like make some suggestions. And a lot of times on Twitter I'm just kind of annoying, and I'm like, can we do like less Pepe's and less, sort of Rick and Morty, and more, I don't know, like push this a little bit. Let's get, um I don't know. There's so much to explore here, and just because it's pixel art doesn't mean we have to, reduce it to, Pepe's and Game Boy stuff. I've voted on themes. I don't think I've ever I don't know. Maybe I've suggested some themes. I've never won. I've never had my themes chosen. But every once in a while, again, like I'll get on Twitter and I'll be like, um, can you do, like, Absinthe was an awesome canvas, and the like Wizard of Oz one was awesome. I was like, can we do that in the bigger, um, canvas? It's cool when canvases repeat and you can see the improvements year over year. Um, but yeah, I think it's just keeping it fresh, right? Like, and I don't know if that's rotating through, if it's getting new artists, if it's rotating through sort of who's on different roles. And yeah, I think it's just, it's always a challenge of, like, when you're doing a thing every single day, how do you take in new inputs and new inspiration to try new things and push the boundaries and get out of your comfort zone, and just not keep making, the thing that you made, before. And some of that is subconscious, like, oh, we're making this again and we didn't realize it. um but there's, so, like, they've done a couple, like, multi-day, like, story themes, right? There was the camping one a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. There was one that was like a comic book, or they were sort of like telling a story over 5 days, which was a cool exploration. um there's between, like, serialization, animation, um and playing with canvas size, playing with, art historical themes. I don't know. I feel like they should, and as a community, we should, like, look for sources, you know, super, super out there. Right, you're like, what if this is, what is, there was a jazz canvas, right? Like, run down that a little bit, and like, how does, if base paint is similar to jazz in the, you know you're making it on the spot, you don't know what's going to come out, this is a performance that's over tomorrow, like, how do we explore that more? um and again, I think just not leaning too into like internet tropes, and there's a whole world out there to explore. Like, prediction markets are very in vogue right now. Like, how does base paint think about a prediction market, right? To use animation to change the graph of a prediction market over the course of a day, I don't know. But then you go back to sort of the canvases, or the classic canvases. You've got the uh, they've done two stamp collecting ones, which are really cool. Like, these sort of canvases within canvases are fun. Um, but it can get a little collagey, right? Like, just making sure that there's sort of not like, there was an era of them where there was like one foreground subject that was very detailed, and then there was a bunch of stuff in the background. Um, but if you zoom out and you look at base paint over the course of 800 plus days, like, you see these themes crescendo and play out. And there was clearly something they were chewing on for a period of time, and then they moved on from that. So I think it's like nudges in different directions, and trusting the process, and just being a fun, friendly, healthy, collaborative place. And like I said before, like, there's going to be bangers, and the bangers are influenced by the work that was done before, and there's going to be a bunch of canvases that are just kind of throwaways, that are sound and impressive in their own way, but they're not like the cat in front of the stained glass, or there was like Day at the Museum or Night at the Museum or something that was really good. And it's also just fun when they bring in references to like whatever's happening in crypto or in the world right now. And I think looking back, you'd be like, it's cool that there's a piece of art, similar to people. Like, it's cool that there's a piece of art that clocks this time and this place. Because we just had to make something today, and that was what was on our mind. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot, especially, with my projects. It's like, how do you, like, base paint is doing something right if they can take somebody who doesn't like crypto and involve them in crypto every day, right? And part of that, I'm sure, is like, we just want to get paid, right? And if you pay me in ETH and I convert to USDC and I go through Coinbase and I get it out, like, that's just how I make my money, right? Could be as simple as that. But to be a place where there's no perverse incentives, it's very calm, in terms of like the money flow, the creation flow, and it uses on-chain rails, like, that is a testament to what crypto can do well. And I feel really strongly about that, and I think that base paint should be trumpeted for for delivering that, right? Like, people made money in DeFi and stuff by like putting money in a thing and wrapping it into another thing, and right, like, none of that is real. It's just sort of like parking stuff places, right? And some of that is real, right? Like Aave and Compound are real ways that, like, you can put money on chain and get yield, right? But then there's a bunch of yield farming nonsense, right? But just to provide this opportunity of like, you can do art here, people will pay for your art, and you will be proportionally compensated based on how much you contributed to this canvas. It's simple, it's beautiful, it works, and I think that's awesome. And then as like the future, again, it's just like, it's keeping it fresh, and maybe it's like fashion houses where there's like a new creative director that comes along every once in a while, or a guest creative director. But like, how do you onboard more people? Like, talking to Jude a couple of weeks ago, he's like, my friends who do pixel art hate NFTs, right? And part of that is like everyone reaching out to them in 2021 to get them to do an NFT project, in pixel art for them. And like, I get that. But like, take a second look, how do we, the challenge with crypto has always been like, do you build for the crypto audience and hope that that crypto audience expands over time? Or do you build something on crypto rails that is legible to people in an airport, right? People at a cocktail party, where you're like, I'm a pixel artist, like I contribute to this canvas every day and I get paid. Like, cool, tell me more about that. And we don't have to get into MetaMask and private keys and Ethereum and block times and all the crypto nonsense, right? You're just like, I'm an artist, I want to make money, and here's a way to do that. And I think we're at a point, a very specific point in crypto, where we have the tools that we've been asking for a decade. We've got fast L2s, we have account abstracted wallets, we have good dev tools, and we can build, Apple approves stuff in the App Store. Like, we have the things we need to build stuff for normal audiences. And it's really time to pivot in that direction. And I think Basepaint is really well suited to make that pivot. Right. But part of that is like getting out on the street and like talking to people and shaking hands and onboarding people one at a time, and not posting in, a subreddit and hoping that people convert. So, I think it's like, keep doing what you're doing, but also figure out ways to like keep it fresh and keep it fun and collaborate and just keep going. Like, part of the thing with Nouns too was like, Nouns is still around. And like, how many projects from 2021, 2022 can say they're still around 3-4 years later? And you certainly go through ups and downs and your trials and tribulations, but there's something powerful to just the fact that we've stuck around unlocks all of these doors and all of these possibilities that we wouldn't have had if, we just shut down after year one. Because people are like, oh, they're still doing that? Like, I should check in on that. Like, what's up here? And I think when they hit 1,000 days, it'll be like, holy crap! Like, these guys did this for like, who does anything for 1,000 days? Who does something consistently every day for 3 years? I've never done anything. I haven't showered consistently through, for, there's probably been a day in there, I missed in 3 years. You're like camping or whatever. Right. But like, what do you do every day for 3 years other than like eat and breathe? Like, nothing. So, I don't know. I think it'll be cool to see, what the second 1,000 days holds. I don't think so. It's such a special project, and again, I go back to like, I think the most dangerous thing in crypto is like two guys, two people with an idea and no funding, because your incentives are just so much better than if you've raised a bunch of money. Because if you've raised a bunch of money, you got to return the fund to your investors and their investors. But if you're just like doing it for the love of the game, you can explore so many ideas and so many options that are like a good lifestyle business, or even something that makes, a couple $1,000,000 a year, whatever. But it's not interesting to VCs, but it's interesting to like a whole bunch of people who participate. And when we look at a lot of like really innovative things that have happened on chain, we look at CryptoPunks, you look at Jack and Jaleel and all the stuff they've built through Visualize Value, checks, etc. You look at Nouns, you look at the Chromie Squiggle, like all of these things were done by people just for the love of the game, right? And same with Basepaint, like Winter and Zach just starting this as like a, I know exactly how long Base has been around because it's the same time Basepaint's been around. And I would love to see them get more love than they do. And like, I look at my job as just a fan. It's not even the fact that I have a full set. Like, I'm not trying to pump my bags. Like, I just love the collaboration, the cohesion, the improvisation. Like that's so cool to me. And like people who are, token works is the same thing. Like people just exploring ideas with on-chain mechanisms and mechanics can make good money, but they also have the best incentives because they don't have to corrupt it with, some multi-level Ponzi, whatever. Um, so I just love that, I love when these projects succeed to whatever, level that is. And I just try to like champion more of those things.